in a separate development, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says his country is open to talks with US President-elect Donald Trump, but will use any means to prevent Washington and its allies from defeating it in Ukraine. In an interview with the US journalist Carlson Tucker, Mr. Lavrov urged the West to take Russia's red line seriously, but spoke positively of Mr. Trump, who returns to the White House next month. Mr. Lavrov said he did not believe that Russia and the US were at war right now because of Washington's support for Kyiv, including the supply of US missiles that Ukraine has fired into Russia. But he also said that Russia's firing of a new intermediate range hypersonic missile at a Ukrainian city last month was a signal that the West must take seriously. He warned that they must understand that Moscow would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call a strategic defeat of Russia.
In what it is obvious that the Ukrainians would not be able to do what they're doing with long-range modern weapons without direct participation of the American servicemen. And this is dangerous, no doubt about this. If they are following the logic which some Westerners have been pronouncing lately, that, well, don't believe that Russia has red lines, they announce their red lines, these red lines are being moved again and again and again, this is a very serious mistake. So the message which we wanted to sell by testing in real action this hypersonic system is that we will be ready to do anything to defend our legitimate interest. We hate even to think about war with the United States, which will take, nuclear character. The United States and the allies of the United States, who also provide this long-range weapons to the Kyiv regime, they must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call strategic defeat of Russia. It's a very dangerous game, and to speak about limited exchange of nuclear strikes is an invitation to disaster, which we don't want to happen.
And that's Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov talking to the US journalist Carlson Tucker. Well, for his assessment of these developments, I'm joined now on the line from London by the European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Great to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. Let's start with Romania. After 2 weeks of political turmoil, how much of a shock is this move by the Constitutional Court to annul the presidential election?
Oh, it's very much a shock, because now this means that the presidential elections will be delayed. Presumably that means that the current president will stay in office for longer, which in itself will bolster the demonstrations against the current government, because obviously the president will be there for longer. Secondly, it means that the victory that this candidate had, the far right one as he's called, is of course annulled, and again we'll see what happens this time. However, the shock has not stopped in one respect, I believe, that it's by no means clear that it's as a result of any Russian meddling or TikTok that he won so many votes. There's simply a far more support for him than people bargained for, and I expect him therefore not to disappear as a result of the next electoral voting.
Well, let me take you up on that point that you made about alleged Russian meddling. I mean, the decision to annul this election was based on what the judges said was evidence and proof from intelligence agencies of potential external meddling in the entire vote, including cyber attacks and an attempt to influence the vote using TikTok. They said they needed, therefore, to cancel the entire ballot. And when we talk about outside interference, they're obviously talking about Russia.
Yes, they did say Russia was meddling. They asserted this. It's one of the problems, of course, when you deal with politics, is that what is ostensibly true may not be, in the sense, obviously, that this candidate has denied any links to Russia, and Russia has denied it. Well, quite clearly, it was possible for Russia to have meddled, and indeed the court believes so. But the other aspect is that, of course, he's not a popular candidate among some of the electorate, and therefore it is possible that, of course, this whole business is indeed to stop him. Politics is unfortunately by no means clear cut, and in this respect, what will be interesting will be the elections again, which presumably will be held as soon as possible. But it does mean that we will see just how firm the support for this unexpected candidate really is.
Indeed, and the point you make there rather tallies with what Mr. Georgescu has been saying. That's, of course, the man who won the first round. As you said, he's seen as a far-right candidate. He said quite pointedly that he is not Moscow's man, and he's pitched himself as a sort of one man against the system, an anti-establishment character. Is he right when he says that this is the system kicking back and trying to block him?
Unfortunately, we can't really just say no. It's out very much in the air what is really happening there. What is quite clear is that Hungary and Slovakia have gone a certain path, and Romania is right next door. And so there's no obvious reason why his vote was not, in fact, a correct vote, because it would mirror what's happening nearby. Therefore, I think what we can say in a sheer fact is the Constitutional Court has annulled this election, but does not mean that if they were held again, he would not win. And so therefore, what we have is more of a pause to find out what's happening rather than anything else. But it'll be a rash person who judges precisely on all the statements made, precisely what is going on. I mean, it's entirely possible, of course, that Russia's influence is far bigger than we suppose. Then again, it's entirely possible that, in fact, the electorate really does support what Hungary and Slovakia are saying, is they've had enough of the war, don't want anything to do with it, and are tired of themselves being poor countries, of supporting somebody else.
Well, with regard to all the assessments you just made there, I mean, does all this leave Romanian politics even more unsettled than it was before?
Yes. What it does mean, not only unsettled, I would go further. At present, it's almost as if Romania has, in a sense, been neutralized, because it's quite clear that there is a substantial vote of people who don't want the war to carry on, coupled with the fact that Germany and France are also in a political turmoil. This means that the EU is very much weakened in its support for Ukraine at this juncture. Whereas, of course, in America, two further developments are not only has Donald Trump laid out what he sees as his plan, but of course that the Speaker of Congress has blocked $24 billion of aid for Ukraine. So the net effect of all this is actually what we might say a very good time for Russia, in the sense there is no strong support for Ukraine which can be taken for granted anywhere.
Well, let me turn a bit more closely to Russia then, and that interview that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov gave to the US journalist Tucker Carlson, warning the West not to cross Russia's red lines. I mean, did it sound like World War III is still far away or drawing nearer? I was wondering what message you got from it.
Well, actually, it was a strange mixed message, because he certainly is not, how can you put, a forceful speaker. And he gave the impression, which was backed up, that in fact Russia has had its red lines crossed before, and nothing much has happened, because he says something quite significant. Please remember the fact that NATO missiles, that is, missiles from Britain and from America, were used onto Russian soil, and Putin was threatening wrathful vengeance of all sorts just recently. And now suddenly here we have Lavrov saying, well, it's just, we how can I put it? He's simply asserting it's now almost part of the war that this happens. Therefore, he gave a message of weakness in that respect, and the other time trying to say that Russia's red lines should be taken seriously. I was very surprised by the tone taken in one sense, because with the West significantly weakened, as I said just before, I'd expected Russia to play a harder line. So the impression here is that they're perhaps trying to jostle for, how can I put it, a pleasant rapport with Trump by showing themselves to be ready to negotiate, and by no means being a strong and no means seeking more and more territory. So therefore, I would read this as good for the world, in the sense that Putin is not putting forward a very strong line at present.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is a European affairs analyst. He was talking to me on the line there from London.